Welcome everyone. My name is Alex Cahana and I am calling from New York. And so it's the, I would say in the epicenter of COVID, there's an I and there's a dot on the I, so that's where I am. And we're gonna talk in the next few minutes about blockchain and healthcare. Just to get a sense of what we know. Any of us here into healthcare? Raise their hand. Very good. And anyone else here into blockchain? Okay, so we have some that raised both hands, some of them raised half a finger. Very good. So that's great. I'll tell a few minutes about myself just to give you context, and then what I do. And you see behind me here with this right hand, Consensus Health, and a little bit of topics that we can talk about, but by no means this is either prescriptive or educational. It's really about getting to know people and exchange ideas. I am a physician. I was 27 years in anesthesiology and pain medicine. So I've heard a lot of people complain about pain throughout my career. I built pain programs around the world. So I'm familiar not only with the US, but also with the European and Japanese healthcare systems. And I have been interested in technology in the last 15 years and how to integrate technology in the physician workflow, and blockchain in the last 6 years, which in blockchain years is forever. And afterwards, I might tell you why blockchain and not other stuff. But my single line is to blockchainize healthcare, and if you want, healthify the crypto space. That's kind of my mission. I'm the Chief Medical Officer of Consensus Health, which is the largest blockchain and healthcare company in the world. By the virtue of the languages that I speak, I'm also responsible for the European, Middle Eastern, and African markets. And we are a global company and really seek to, I would say, insert Web3 tools into healthcare. And for me, as a physician, it's more about how do we transform patients from being passive health service consumers to be active, health and wealth producers. So I'll stop here. Anyone can jump, please, one after the other on the line, or if there's an urgent question that you want to ask, please use the chat function. And let's enjoy the 20 minutes. Yes, please. Going ahead.
Did you say Web 3?
Yes, Web 3.0.
Okay. All right.
I'm
familiar with that.
Okay, so that's first question. What do you mean when you mean Web 3.0? So I'll start with that. So traditionally, Web 1.0 is when I would say the early 90s, we started to use computers and have the internet, or the World Wide Web, if you wish, because the internet was way back in the 60s. And the idea was democratization of knowledge. Suddenly we had access to knowledge. And so that changed, I would say, the traditional definition of what is an expert. So I'm old enough to remember that when I was an expert was considered someone who had the best memory. And so when we would argue around the table, my dad would send me to the room, go look at the Encyclopedia Britannica, come back to me. And if there was something that wasn't there, I'd have to go to the local library. What the Web 1.0 did is that now we say, Google it. And so suddenly now everyone's an expert. Web 2.0 started, I would say, in the 2000s, or a little bit later, the latter half of the first decade of the 2000s, when broadband started to come out. And so we were suddenly able to download a lot of things, YouTube and all these kind of videos. So the internet became very dynamic with a lot of dynamic content. And that changed the definition of an influencer. So once upon a time, an influencer was someone who wrote serious books or someone who won a Nobel Prize. Now an influencer is someone who can dance with great virtual backgrounds and people follow and do thumbs up. And so, of course, you know, I'm a top blogger on Medium, so you're all invited to follow me on medium.com. And so I'm an influencer by the virtue of 2.0. Web 3.0 is actually the next web that I think there are two things about it. One is that it doesn't push content to you, because right now, I'm sure you're aware, you talk about something and suddenly you see ads about that something you talked about, even though you don't want it. So the internet pushes you stuff that are not curated. So one thing is with the use of artificial intelligence, it'll be more curated and it'll be more pull rather than push. But more importantly is that this is where blockchain comes in, is that it is more secure, the Web 3.0. It is more able to keep the privacy of your information. And so it is what we call the internet of value, that now you're able to send things that are valuable without worrying if you're going to lose it or get hacked. And so there are privacy preserving technologies, there are encryption technologies or cryptographic technologies. And so we are not far from, instead of seeing a world wide web, it'll be a worldwide ledger. In other words, we will all be our own internet, if you wish, and we'll interact as internet universes between us. So I hope I answered that question.
Thank you very much.
Thumbs up is good. So any questions we want to ask, or should I just go on and talk about blockchain and healthcare? Yes, go ahead.
Go on.
So I think that when people, always when I start the conversation about blockchain and healthcare, people say, what is blockchain? And there's really no good definition, and suddenly we use a lot of words that we never used before, and ledgers and cryptographic signatures and hashes and all that. And the reason why we are using these words or this nomenclature is because it has been explained by technologists. So I am not a technologist, I'm a physician, and my perspective of blockchain is that it is a technology, it is a software, if you want, that solves the social problem of trust, or if you want, mistrust or fake. In other words, I listen to information and I'm not sure that what I'm listening is accurate. I'm reading a contract. I'm not sure that the contract is actually complete. I am eating some food and I'm not sure that the food that I'm eating is what I think I'm eating. I am getting medication and I'm not sure that the medication that I'm paying for is the medication I wanted. So all these things that pertain to trust are actually solved by blockchain. And they're not solved by blockchain because there are trustworthy people in it. It's not solved because now there is some notary that can sign my papers and say Alex is really Alex, so I know that it's true. It's trustworthy because it has in it computational trust. And computational trust means that 2 + 2 always equals 4. In other words, that the data that I know in it is accurate, that what I put in it is accurate, it stays there, and it can't be tampered with. So we call it immutable. You can't tamper with it. So that one of the magics about that blockchain is that it is a single source of truth that is undisputable. But there's another thing that's really interesting about it, and you might have heard about it when you talk about blockchain. It's sometimes called distributed ledger technology. So let's look at these words. So ledger, we all know, is like an Excel sheet, if you want, or a Google sheet, okay? And distributed means that it's distributed between multiple people. Now, what does this distribution do? What does this decentralization do? So imagine you're on a Google sheet. So for example, today I'm gonna do a Google sheet. I'm gonna write stuff on my research. I wanna check what are the best Japanese restaurants in New York. And I just write stuff and all this. But suddenly, okay, I see that on my Google Sheets, there are multiple people that are looking at what I'm putting in. So I'm gonna be way more careful, right? I'm gonna do more serious research. I'm gonna make sure that what I'm writing is accurate. And if I give editing power to Catherine and Tamsin and Michael and Barbara and Kyle and Ula and everybody that's here on the call, then people are going to put in their input and it's going to be way better because I'm just looking at stuff, but then the other folks on the line are going to say, no, there's another one and another one. And so we have crowd intelligence, an intelligence that is not just centralized in my head, but it's decentralized. Now, what makes blockchain different than just distributed ledgers or ledgers that are connected to each other is that at the end of the day, or at the end of the hour, or at the end of the afternoon, or at the end of the week, whatever time we decide, we all agree that that is the final version of that ledger. That is the final version of that list. And so we lock it. And when I say we lock it, I mean that we attach to it or attribute it a string of numbers, which computers call it a hash, that is like an identifier. And it can't be changed anymore. So that list that I did, that block that I did, is called block 000123455, hash or pound sign. And that's it. And nobody can enter it anymore. Nobody can tamper it. Nobody can change it. Nobody can say, oh no, we didn't ask you Japanese food. We asked you Chinese food. No, we didn't mean New York. We meant Paris. It cannot change. It is transparent. It is final. It is immutable. And it is traceable. I can actually see who said what, who contributed what, who put in a lot of work, who just didn't do anything. And it has an identifier, and that is a block. And imagine I do that every day. And so the next day I'll have another block, and the third day I'll have a third block and a fourth block and a fifth block. But all these blocks are connected in a chain, hence the name blockchain. So if someone at the end of the week wants to come in and wants to tamper it, it is very difficult because they will have to break into every single block in order to make those changes. So blockchain basically is a data structure in a database that is distributed, that it is encrypted, that it is cryptographically signed, and it is shared by multiple people. Now, it could be something small, like our group, and we will have a private blockchain. Let's call it the Alex blockchain. And it'll just be our list, and it'll belong to us, and that's it. And that's a private blockchain. But it can also be public and permissionless, and anybody can join. So if you want, you can think of consensus as a world computer, that all the people that want to, that we permission them, because we are a public blockchain, we can permission them to enter. So that technology solves the problem of trust or mistrust, because you cannot alter the information without everybody who is looking at that Google sheet know that someone is trying to attack it. Know that someone is trying to mess around with the information. And of course, you understand how important that is for researchers, how important it is for patients, how important it is for doctors, and how really interesting this type of technology is when we deal with healthcare information. So I'll stop at this point before I move to my next point and ask if there are any questions. I'm looking at your faces. Yes, Catherine, go ahead.
I just want to make sure I understand in the public, is it with permission or is it permissionless?
Permissionless.
I got lost there.
Yes, permissionless.
Okay.
That I don't need to give permission. I don't give. Permissioned is only I permission certain people to be. So it's a private club. You are permissioned. Permissionless means everybody can go in. But it's a great question, because another attribute that blockchain has in healthcare is called trustless, which is an unfortunate word, because when you say to someone it's trustless, you think it's not trustworthy. You think, oh, that's a lie. But actually trustless, what the technologists mean by it, is that you don't need a third party to trust. So where does that start? Where is that important? It's important when we start to do transactions. So let me give you an example. Let's say I go to the shop and I pay, I love these cookies that I eat, and go ahead, Catherine.
Like a third party is like a middleman or a middle person?
A middle person, yes, a middleman, a middle woman. So let's say, for example, I go to the shop and I buy a cookie, and I put in my Visa card. So how many steps do you think is between me and the merchant to get the Visa card? Anybody can show with a show of hands how many fingers? Is it one person, two people, 5, 10, 50? Catherine's like she's going like 20. Well, it's more than 5, less than 20, but it's correct. So that plastic card that I put in contacts, because I have, let's say, a Visa card. So it contacts Visa, and Visa, they're too busy. So they contact a third party to say if my name is on that ledger. They say, he's on that ledger. And then they call another third party, which says, does he have an account? That calls another third party that calls my bank if I have an account, but the bank is too busy. So they call another clearinghouse to think of that and that. And then that person calls the clearinghouse of the vendor, and it goes on and on and on. And that's why for every dollar that you transact, you pay 3.5 cents to pay all these people. Now, you might not care about it because 3.5 cents is not a lot for you, but for some people in the world who make $1 a day, 3.5 cents for every transaction, every single transaction, is a lot of money. And so we do what we call disintermediate, or we take away and we automate all these transactions. And that is one of the I would say, most magical things that are happening when we use this type of technology. And that's why we call it peer-to-peer technology. It's a peer-to-peer transaction. And when you take away fees, what that means is that you have fees, you have more money, and I have more money. So that's an example of transaction of money. But you can think about it, for example, as data or as information. How many times when you flew on a flight did you have to put in, even though you're flying the same company, your sensitive information again and again? How many times do you have to put in your passport number, your expiry date, where was it issued, where are you flying, it just is annoying. And then they lose it, and then they don't remember it, and then someone hacks it. And so instead of this, with blockchain, you can create a QR code that can sit on your phone that has your identity that belongs to you. So you just scan it once and it doesn't change. So your passport can be on that QR code. And so just to give everybody a feel, this can be, one second, I'll bring something to show you. Here, this is, for example, a card. Okay, I'm covering the company so you don't see the name of the company of the card, but this is, for example, a card. And on that card, it has a chip. And on that chip, it has everything. Has my passport, has my driver's license, has my college grades, has my electronic health record, has everything on it. And it can't be hacked because it's on this special technology. If I lose it, it's worth nothing. But if I scan it with my phone, suddenly all the information that I want pops up and it belongs to me, not to someone else. And if you look at it closely, it says on it 3 magical letters. That is, I don't know if we can see it. Yeah, here it says BTC, kind of goes away because of the virtual background. But it says on it Bitcoin. So what that means is that you can connect this information to digital money transactions. So for example, I can pay for stuff, or I can make money from doing stuff. And that's why I like so much, and I think the future of healthcare with Bitcoin is really to insert this type of technology, not only to make things faster, cheaper, better, but it also gives you an opportunity to create economic gain by healthy behaviors. Because imagine with this card, every time I go on a scale, or every time I have my blood tests and I have my normal, I don't have diabetes, I can get a reward from my doctor, from my insurance company, or I can get access to a gym for cheaper, or I can buy cheaper vegetables, and I can't buy cigarettes and I can't buy alcohol. So you start to create incentives, a way to incentivize people to behave in a healthy way and discourage unsavory behavior. Now I have a question here that popped up in chat. How do we know for sure that this can't be hacked? So first of all, the answer is very highly technical. I can go into the weeds. I'm not sure that I can go into the weeds into 5 minutes, but I'll say 2 things. One is that you can never say in math for sure, because it's always probabilities. The question is the probability. So everything can be hacked eventually. It's like breaking into your apartment. I can break into your apartment. The question is, how much time and energy do I want to spend doing this? So the answer to it is that it's not that it can't be hacked, and it's very hard to hack it because of the cryptographic language, but also the way it's structured is that it's not worthwhile. In other words, imagine I have $1 billion in one bank account. So I am sure that all of you now will leave what you're doing and you will hack all day long until you'll get access to that $1 billion. That is why the Federal Reserve has an army of people that all the day are fending off hackers. But imagine that instead of having one account that has $1 billion, there are 1 billion accounts that have $1. Nobody's going to hack into something that has $1. It's just not worth the effort. So part of this decentralization is it actually makes it attack resistant, because it's not worth doing it. So it's almost like saying that my password, everyone that's on this call has a piece of my password, not even a letter, just a pixel of my password. And the only way for someone to hack into my account is that if all of you collude at the same time, on the same computer, in the same place to go into my account. And I know it's never going to happen because Catherine and Ula are not going to agree to it. So that's the idea, that it is unhackable by structure, by design, and not by compute intensity. So this, half hour has passed really fast. We have only 2 minutes left. What I will do is I will write my email here on the chat so that you can reach out to me if you have other questions. Yes, I did it correctly. And you're welcome, Kyle, for answering that question. And please read me on Medium. I try and write every week about blockchain and healthcare. If you like it, then I wrote it. And if you don't like it, it's someone else hacked and wrote it instead of me. And I'll be very happy to be a reference for you for any questions, and so that you will be the ambassadors of blockchainizing healthcare and healthifying the crypto space. So thank you so much.